something from its arch enemy. We say Hayshana Nefesh Me Bahala. When we talk about a human being, about a mind of a person, we say Hayshana, Hashem help us, Nefesh Me Bahala. A person's mind, that it should be safe from Bahala, from a sense of tumult. Because when a person has a sense of tumult, then that's a tremendous sakana. Rav Moshe used to say often, in the years that I was by Rav Moshe, it was the only speech I heard him say more than once. He used to say often that the downfall of Yiddishkeit in America in the beginning of this century is that they always taught that's a schwer zu sein a Yid. They taught Yiddish. If you teach Yiddish, there's nothing left. They didn't teach this is good to sein a Yid. A Yiddishkeit, we're talking about from people who are earnest in their Avodah. But you can have the same Avodas Hashem, which is built on a sense of B'tachin, and the same which is built on a sense of Yiddish. And they're two different products. They come from two different things. And that is the matziv in Eretz Yisrael. There's a matziv of people who go with a sense of Yiddish, a sense, when you hear them try to explain, to defend themselves, why they're going on this particular path, they don't answer what a wonderful path it is. Their answer is always, what are the alternatives? What are the alternatives? The alternatives are worse. That's the attitude. It means it's Yiddish. There's a certain sense of Yiddish. From a sense of Yiddish, you can't build. From a sense of Yiddish, you can't make decisions. A Yid has a sense of B'tachin. From a sense of B'tachin, a person thinks differently. Secular Zionism is built to a great degree on Yiddish. The entire concept of Zionism, to a from a Yid, what is the concept of Tzion? It's something optimistic, it's a love, it's a return to Eretz Yisrael, it's a hope for Yemais HaMashiach. Let me tell you where secular Zionism comes from. It's rooted in the fact that Jews were persecuted in Europe. And Jews were persecuted. We need an Eitzah. It went on for so many centuries. We need an Eitzah. Recognized as the father of secular Zionism is Theodor Herzl. Let me read to you from Herzl's diary something that should be well known, and I don't think it's well known. Herzl tried very hard to find a solution to the Jewish problem, to the problem of Jews being persecuted all the time. In his diary, and this is written in 1895, which means that it was just around the corner from his decision to pursue a state in the land of Israel. And this is a quote. He says, approximately 2 years ago, I wanted to solve the Jewish problem in Austria at any rate, with the aid of the Catholic leaders here. I sought an audience with the Pope in order to tell him, help us against anti-Semitism, and I will generate a mass movement of Jews to convert to Christianity, freely and proudly. This was his answer. The leaders of the movement, particularly myself, says Herzl, will remain Jews. And as Jews, we will call for the acceptance of the dominant religion. On Sunday at noon, the conversion will be carried out with a festive procession and the ringing of bells. Not in shame, as individuals have done in the past, but with pride. The fact that leaders will preserve their Jewishness and remain outside, while they lead the masses to the church doors, will lend distinction to the entire matter and invest it with great sincerity. You should read on. It's a Pella. Herzl's solution to the problem was that all Jews should convert to Christianity. Unfortunately for him, and fortunately for us, nobody else wanted to do it. So his next eitzah was that all the Jews should move to Eretz Yisrael and will be free of anti-Semitism. This is a Zionism which is built on Yiddish. It's not built on a B'tachin. It's built on a sense of Yiddish. When you build on a sense of Yiddish, so you have other things. There's a history of Zionism. It's not a time for it now. It's full of these things. Do you know that Herzl wanted to switch the British off at Uganda instead of Eretz Yisrael? They offered him Uganda. And in 1905, he decided, we'll build Israel in Uganda. Imagine, I uns gesagt, in Uganda with Idi Amin, we're going to have Israel, right? And not only that, he signed an agreement with the British that his agreement was that all the Jews will all move to Uganda and will accept the African culture so as not to disturb the natives there. I don't know what that exactly meant. It meant painting our faces or wearing certain kinds of earrings or whatever the culture could have been at that time in Uganda. But what is it built on? When from Yidden hear about Eretz Yisrael, it's a licht, it's a light. Where does this come from, this whole school of thought? It comes from a yush. It comes from a hope that Yidden should be, chas v'sholem, that niyeh kechol ha'amim, that Jews should be like the other nations. We should be, why? If other nations live in peace, why can't Yidden live in peace? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us, Asher atem oimrim niyeh kagayim, if you have a dream to be like the other nations, Hayai Laisiyah, the Rabbi Shalom says, Chayaninu Hashem, Imloi biyad chazaka, B'zrei netuya, B'chemla shefucha, Emloi chaleichem. That there's no such thing. A dream, if all the other nations live in peace, why can't we? It's not around the corner. It's not to be. It's a different approach. It's a different sense of approach to the whole thing. What remains is one more point to understand. When we see what's going on in Eretz Yisrael, where does that leave us? What about our own sense of Yush, our love for all the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael, our hope for the strengthening of the Yishuv in Eretz Yisrael? And after all that's happened there, Chalila, we could have a sense of Yush. Wasn't it a sense of Yush after the bombings that Yidden felt? What is the attitude? What is the feeling that a Yid is supposed to feel, besides, of course, the feeling that it's mutal aleinu and from a Yidden to turn to the Rabbi Shalom. There's an interesting Gemara in the Darim, Daf Nun Amid Beis. The Gemara says that Rabbeinu HaKadosh made a chasana. Rebbe married off his son, I think Shimon Berei, the Gemara says. So he made a chasana. The Gemara makes a cheshbon. If you figure it out, he spent on this wedding 2,400,000 dinarim. Now, I don't know how much a dinner is, but 2,400,000 of anything is a nice chasana. So the Gemara says that Bar Kapara sent a letter to Rebbe. He says, Rebbe, on this chasana, you're spending 2,400,000 dinarim, and Bar Kapara is not invited. How could it be? So he wrote him a letter. He said, "In l'rishoyim kach, if rishoyim can make such chasanas, l'tzadikim alachas kama v'kama." Imagine what tzadikim will do. It sounds like a chutzpah, the letter he sent him. So the Gemara says, so Rebbe relented. He sent Bar Kapara an invitation. It's the end of the Gemara. So Rabbi Kiva gets Seichen Su in the bottom of the Gilyon HaShas to look in Shuvas Shvus Yaakov Chelak Aleph Siman Kuf Pei Beis Dover Nechmad, a beautiful pshat in the Gemara. So if you look there, it's Taka, such a beautiful pshat in the Shvus Yaakov. Tells us what exactly happened. We know, and this we know before the Shvus Yaakov, that after the Churban of the Beis Hamikdash, it was a terrible time for Klal Yisrael. There was a tremendous disagreement among Gedolei Yisrael about how people should, and what their attitude should be. There were Yidden who wouldn't eat meat or drink wine their whole lives after the Churban. And there were those who felt that a person's supposed to smile and get on with life. There's a Chavos Yoyer writes in the Tshuva that Rabbah and Reb Zera used to argue. Reb Zera, Chazal tell us, never smiled. It says they tried to, Reb Yirmiyah tried to bring his Rebbe, Reb Zera, Lidei Gichuch, and he was never able to get him to smile. He was always mourning over the galus. Rabbah, he did every drasha. The Gemara says he started his drashas with a milsa de b'dichasa. There's a Gemara L'mashal Sanhedrin. It says Rabbah made a goylem. The Gemara says the only place it's recorded the creation of a goylem, that Rabbah made a goylem and he sent it to Reb Zera's house. Reb Zera opened the door, said, "Who are you?" He couldn't answer. He figured out he's a goylem, so he turned him back into dust. So what kind of funny story? What's Rabbah sending a goylem to Reb Zera? Like, you're making a goylem for what? Just to send him to knock on Reb Zera's door? So the Mepharshim say that the Rabbah was trying to bring Reb Zera l'dei gichuch. He was trying, the Chazal wanted to cheer him up. There was a big machlokes. Bar Kapara, the Shvus Yaakov was of the Shita, that a person has to laugh, a person has to be happy. Rebbe resisted. So why did Bar? So he didn't want to invite him to his chasna because he was a badchin. He's going to make jokes at the wedding. He felt it's not a time for jokes. So Reb Zera sent him, Bar Kapara rather, sent a letter. What did he write? In l'rishoyim kach l'tzadikim alachas kama v'kama. What's pshat? He didn't mean to be mevaza Rebbe. He told Rebbe, this machlokes between me and you, it's an old machlokes. It's a machlokes Reb Akiva v'chaveirav. The Gemara says at the end of Makis that when they were walking at the time of the Churban and they saw the smoldering ruins in Eretz Yisrael, so the Rabbanim were weeping and Reb Akiva was laughing. And they asked him why. So there are a few incidents where they said that they see what to cry about. And Reb Akiva, through his eyes, he saw what to smile about. And he said, in l'rishayim kach, in la'isay ritzaynai alachas kama v'kama, that when we see what's going on, so the rest of the nevuah will be makuyim. La'isay ritzaynai alachas kama v'kama mitoich tzaris, to be able to see the destiny of Klal Yisrael. How much in our time, in our generation, in our century, we should be able to see that there's a special place for Klal Yisrael. Any mamin b'Hashem, anybody with eyes sees how Klal Yisrael stands out. It's never going to be niyah karmin. What's the answer? Why can't Yidden live in peace? Why can't everyone leave us alone? The teretz is because there's a certain destiny for Yidden. For the few million Klal Yidden in the world are always going to be at center stage. Because Yidden, we have our own destiny, we have our own job, we have our own purpose in the world. And a person can see in that what to smile about, can see in it the amunah, the betachin, that in Kain, la'isei ritzaynai alachas kama v'kama, that certainly la'isei ritzaynai kach. The nevuah of Yecheskel, it says in Yecheskel, it's I think the Haftarah v'Eira, Paragraph Tes of Yecheskel, he says in nevuah la'achris hayamim, that Hashem will destroy Mitzrayim. And his lashon is something like v'lo yeh oid lemiftach maskeres avim. I'm going to destroy those that you made a treaty with. Lo yeh oid lemiftach maskeres avim. That the treaty shouldn't be around anymore to remind me of your averis. Rabbi Chanan Wasserman writes in Ikvisa de Meshicha that what's in Egypt's fault if Yidden made a treaty with Egypt? That's a chsarim betachin by Yidden. What's at the fault of Mitzrayim? Why should they be destroyed? Zocht Rabbi Chanan, you can look, it's in Ikvisa de Meshicha in Kayvitz Mamorim, page Kuf Lamed Vav, Kuf Lamed Zayin. Rabbi Chanan, as you know, his shita is that Avodah Zarah is not only an idol. Avodah Zarah is any place where Jews put their faith. Any place besides the Rabbi Shalom where people put their faith, that's an Avodah Zarah. Zok Rabbi Chanan, the peace treaties are also an Avodah Zarah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that when I destroy Belaheyim Asa Shvatim, Hashem destroys the Avodah Zarah. So the nevuah for Lasid Lava is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will destroy the Mitzrim v'lo ya'aid lemiftach maskeres aven. That the miftach, this treaty, it shouldn't be there anymore, maskeres aven, to remind Klal Yisrael of the lack of betachin. We can only hope and be mispal. The last time I remember such a black hope when I was a child in May of 67, and it was then much worse. People didn't know where the Yishuv in Eretz Yisrael is going to land, where it's going to go, where it's going to end up, what hope there was. And it was Keheref Ayin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Mahapich, it was Nahapachu, it was switched. Me'evel Yamtif, and we can hope and pray that today too, the matzav we're in, we don't know a way out of, but the Rabbi Shalom should answer, we should have betachin, and the Mitzvah Hashem, it should be Nishapach, Me'evel Yamtif. Agutavach.